This will be a tournament review of the 1K store showdown at Red Seal Gaming in Matawan, New Jersey. Highly recommend the store. We normally get around 20 players currently for our weekly play. Sometimes we'll go up to 40 for the first at least month. We were getting around 40 players a week. This tournament was 6 rounds, 44 players, cut to top 8. Prize support was around 1200 store credit and 28 packs. It's also on the screen. I ended up going with Boba Blue. I had some other considerations. I think my primary choice would have been Boba Yellow if it wasn't for the fact that I was prioritizing avoiding mirrors more than anything else, and Boba Yellow is or was very heavily played in the local area. A couple still showed up, but less than I expected. Boba Green was also a big consideration. That's the deck that I had started out the game with and had done quite well with, winning a couple other 1K events before switching to Boba Blue. I ended up putting it down because of the rise of control. I think that's a big reason why it shifted a bit out of the meta. It's still very, very good at dealing with the faster strategies. It's just as the meta has evolved, the game has become a bit slower or more well-rounded. I was also considering Krennic Green. I think Krennic Green is very well positioned against the field right now. A big reason why I didn't choose it is also because I wanted to avoid mirrors. I figured out of the control decks, that would likely be the one that would see the most play. And then the last option I was considering was Han Green. I actually do want to give a notable mention to Iden Blue. Seeing as the meta is more aggro skewed at Red Seal Gaming, Iden Blue is, in terms of hard control, one of the better decks to choose against an aggro meta. One of the better hard control decks to choose. I ended up not going with it though because in control mirrors, having access to yellow is very important. I think that's a big reason why blue-red has not been doing well, at least locally. Yellow-blue having access to in-aspect Bounty Hunter Crew and in-aspect Sparker Rebellion, although, well, rather one aspect out of rather than two aspects out of for blue-red villainy, makes the control mirror a lot more approachable. Having that mana to work with is very important. I also was considering Han Green, but again, avoiding mirrors, and that's been spiking a lot in popularity recently, and there were a number of Han Green players there. And while I don't like mirrors, if there was a mirror that I was going to play, I'd want it to be hard control. I think it is by far the most skill-intensive mirror. I still would prefer in a long-form tournament setting to be avoiding mirrors, as I do believe mirrors are extremely luck-based, and hard control mirror also follows that rule. For example, there was game in the tournament where somebody vigilanced me and they hit all three of my bounty hunter crews. I did go on to win that one, but it makes the game so much harder to navigate when they're enacting you're both doing the same game plan, they're enacting their game plan faster, and in terms of the control mirror, it's like, oh, you just hit all three. Like, I need at least one of them still in my deck to recur a restock if I don't end up with restock. So there's still a lot of luck involved. I think in all other mirrors it's extremely luck based. As you progress towards the faster end of things, getting all the way to aggro, an aggro mirror is pretty much all luck. And then control being hard control versus hard control being the most skill based but still luck based. The reason for that being that how you navigate the usage of your tools in the mirror is critical to being able to win, and there's so many small interactions that add up to like decisions that need to be made that lead to a win. For example, when you use your vigilances, because you do want to always have one remaining in your hand to mill their restock. When you use your sparks, because you might need a spark at the end to strip their restock before doing your final mill. Whether you should play if you only have one vigilance in your hand, but you know the game's early on, whether you should play it then or hold on to it for a little bit to see what else you draw, because you could get milled out with one vigilance in your hand, and if you still have like vigilance restock bounty hunter crew, you can still easily win the game even though they milled you first. It is an extremely skill-based matchup. So if I were to be playing a mirror, that's what I want to be playing. Aside from that, I wanted a deck that was good against the field, and I felt that the list that I had come to with Boba Blue, as well as seeing various forms of it, which there seemed to be everything skewing from tempo to aggro to control to hard control, performing well at other events, mostly seeing that on garbage rollers, I figured Boba Blue would be good against the field. It's also my most played deck at this point, not by an insanely wide margin, as I've played the other versions of Boba a bit. I've played Krennic Green a bit. I played Sabine a lot. I've played a lot of the decks in the field quite a bit, but Boba Blue is definitely my most played. I'd also won a prior store showdown with it. This being the list that I had won with. It's changed a bit since winning that showdown. I don't have the 7th Fleet, I don't have the System Patrol Craft at all in the 60 anymore. There's 3 Bounty Hunter crews in the main, the Fire Sprays are in the side. Basically, the original concept of the list when I saw it from Gui, I assumed to be aggro control. I know that that is his favorite archetype. It's also my favorite archetype. And having some low-end creatures, some good removal, the 7th Fleet Defender being extremely resilient to removal with the shield, allows it to stick something early, go into Fett's Fire Spray to keep pressure on, and have the strong suite of blue removal. It functions very, very well. I think this list in itself, even with Inferno 4, which isn't in this one, and that will follow the same logic that the removal of that will follow the same logic as that leads to where the next slide is, the deck that I ended up playing at Red Seal. I do think that the aggro control version is very, very strong. I just found myself resourcing the units very, very often because I couldn't find a spot to get them on the field safely without losing control over the board. Like, okay, I could spend 3 mana here to play 7th Fleet Defender. If they're not in space, it can't actually remove anything, and then if they end up going wide to the board, I can't win the race, and I might not ever catch back up. What ended up happening was I'd just be resourcing the 7th Fleet, resourcing the Patrolcraft, resourcing the Fire Spray in most of my matchups. The matchup that I didn't resource the Fire Spray and I would resource the multiple copies of Avenger instead would be against Sabine. So only wanting the Fire Spray against one matchup, that ended up going to sideboard, and the 7th Fleets and the Patrolcrafts ended up getting cut completely. I end up with this list, which is what I played at Red Seal. And the biggest part of this list is Greedo. I want to be able to consistently hit for 5 with Greedo. There's a very specific line against Sabine in particular where it's turn 1 Greedo if I have initiative. If I don't have initiative, then grab initiative, and then turn 2 remove their creature, hopefully with Power of the Dark Side, but it could be Waylay, I Am Your Father, in some very narrow instances, make an opening, and then untap one and play Greedo. And what that allows is on turn 3 to have Greedo to threaten the Sabine flip without the need to just keep passing. I can just spend my mana, leave Greedo there, and if he flips Sabine, then I attack with Greedo. If not, then Greedo just sits there, and it basically just stops Sabine from flipping. There's only 15 creatures in this deck, so it's a decently high chance of hitting for 5. So it does put the Sabine in a very awkward position. The other part of this is Bosk. I want a very high event density to be able to get the damage from Bosk. Repair, in particular, is very, very good with him, because he can ambush in and then either repair himself to keep him on the board longer while dealing 2 damage, or repair the base and deal 2 damage. It also makes Make an Opening a much better card, where Make an Opening becomes a 4 damage event rather than a -2/-2. And it heals, which helps stabilize against the aggressive decks, which is what I am aiming to beat with this. I also think just the nature of being a hard control deck makes it very good against the mid-range decks. I think the heroic versions are a little harder because they can go a little wider to the board. They're playing normally a little more low to the ground and then have Ewing to play 3 units at once, whereas the villainy ones are playing 2 with Vader as their ability to go wide, and that's a little easier to deal with. Regardless, I'm pretty confident in my mid-range matchup. I think there are some... I think the biggest issue is Han Green in terms of mid-range, where when they're specifically running sneak attack, whether it be sneak attack into... It's specifically sneak attack and home 1. Home 1 bringing back Fleet Lieutenant to just hit for 9 instantly is... can be game ending, you know. If I'm at a high, the whole point is to not get to a high damage total, which is a little bit odd with control, and another reason why all the heal is good with the 3 of repair, 3 of make an opening, aside from the standard vigilance. Because normally in control, like, life is a resource, but currently it's not as usable as a resource because there's so many ways to get damage directly from hand in a single phase. So the sneak attack into home 1 into Fleet Lieutenant is 9 damage instantly. Not it's not interactive. It could also be sneak attack home 1 into Millennium Falcon, which is 10 potential damage, and then if they have more mana, they can... It's not instant, but it is potentially 10, and then if they have more mana, they can follow it up with Fleet Lieutenant for +2, Surprise Strike for +3. I lost the Han Green that I lost to in round did that to me. He was only running 1 sneak attack in his entire deck. I know for sure game 3 he got me with the sneak attack into home 1 into Millennium Falcon. I think he also did it to me game 2. I don't clearly remember. Very hard to deal with. And other than that, I think the mid-range matchups are pretty approachable. I do plan to go more into the card choices and the potential versions of this deck in a separate video, where I will cover the tempo version, the aggro control version. Aggro control is basically the last slide. There's also a tempo version that I've seen going around, which cuts the top end completely. There's no super laser, there's no Avenger. It caps out at fire spray, adds more creatures. I think there's... And not just with this deck, but like with hero combinations in general, there's so many different ways to build a list currently that all work. It's a testament to how good the game is. Another example of that is the Iden Blue player that was playing Iden Blue Midrange at, which I'll go into in a second on the next slide. He's playing Iden Blue Midrange, which is just like a very creature-heavy version of it, not hard control, not like anything I think I've seen from anyone else before, and it performed very well. He got top 8. It's impressive how many different ways leader-base combinations, the same leader-base combinations, can be built. So, Swiss rounds. Round 1, I played against Palp Yellow. Palp decks, I'm not really too concerned about. Palp Blue obviously being the hardest because they can play the mill game that I'm playing, but Palp Yellow, Palp Green, Palp Red, I'm not really too concerned. I can just keep wiping their board. If they have an insane amount of top end, which they normally don't have too much, not like the green-blue villainy control decks might, then they might be able to sneak through a big creature, and then if I have enough damage on me, kill me. The fact that the leader flips so late, and it's very easy to play around Palp with Waylay, I can just return the unit it takes back to my hand if he even has a unit to take, makes it less concerning. Another reason why Krennic threatens a lot more than Palp is because he comes out on turn 4 or turn 3, which is just getting an extra unit to the field, and getting multiple units to the field is the best way you can fight control. So the Palp Yellow matchup went very smoothly. Really not much more to say about that. Han Green, as I mentioned earlier, it was a Han Green list that was very skewed towards value. I don't actually I saw his list after the event, and it wasn't as much as I thought it was. It's just what I saw. He had the value end of his deck with game 1, he ended up having U-Wing as his last card, and I think I milled another U-Wing. So he didn't actually hit the U-Wings. I think there was only one home 1, but it's just game 2 and 3. He hit those U-Wings. He hit the one of sneak attack into home 1, and it was enough to just push through. That instant damage is just so powerful. I think if it wasn't for that, I would have 2-0'd or 2-1'd that matchup. Very impressed by his list and the inclusion of sneak attack. Round 3 was first Iden Blue control, and there's a big issue, as I mentioned earlier, with Iden Blue with Blue against Yellow Blue. Yellow Blue having the reduced cost on the yellow cards just makes the matchup so much easier for them. Whereas Blue, the benefit is they're going to be stronger against aggro because they can play Vigilance for 4, and they also play Cargo Juggernaut. So these Cargo Juggernaut's essentially their 6th slot, and Vigilance is their 4th slot. That deck is very, very good against aggro. I'm not surprised that locals were on Iden Blue because of the aggro skew in the meta, but then they're just a lot weaker to Yellow Blue, and I do think Boba is strong enough with the line that I described, but also in general because he flips on 5 resources, that he doesn't lose enough against Sabine to warrant switching to Blue. He's still strong enough against Sabine that Blue is not necessary. Round 4 was a similar thing. He also didn't have he didn't have any sparks in his main deck. I think my round 3 opponent didn't. He might have had 1 or 2 sparks in main. I saw him after side, I believe. But same exact thing there. No access to yellow for the reduced cost. It makes the matchup too hard for them. I ended up winning game 1 pretty easily, and then game 2, after we sideboarded in the the absurd amount of anti-control cards, it ended up just being. I shuffled. Must have been restock 5 times for 4, and then search to shuffle my library and either pull another restock or pull something else if I had the second restock in hand already. So, like 5 restocks, that's 20 cards already that I'm shuffling back in, and he was going and setting up the same rhythm. The game, it would have gone to time, it was getting close to time, and eventually he just scooped. Round 5, this was a very interesting deck. I really liked it. It was an Iden Blue Midrange deck, so it was just running a lot more units. And I imagine it was very, very strong against the aggro decks. I also know that he beat the Han Green deck that I played in round 2 in the top 8 cut. Very cool deck, but it can't really fight against hard control at all. It's too slow. And it doesn't have, because he's not playing a control list, maybe like there's a way to make it work where you have just a full sideboard and you just sideboard, but like not running. I don't think he was running the full removal package. It's just very creature heavy. It would be a different list, and I don't think that this list works into control. He said it himself that when he designed the list, he knew that if he pulled hard control, it would just be a loss. He was conceding that matchup. And then round 6 was Krennic Green. I think that the list was not as much top end, but basically the way this matchup works, just like most, it's treated as essentially a mid-range matchup. If I can slow them down enough in the early game and keep my life total low enough so that I can potentially eat like an attack or two from a big capital ship, the game has stalled enough for me to force it to super late game where I can deck them out. I've gone against Krennic Green a bunch locally. There's even a player that has, I think he's gone up to like 90 cards in his deck. And I think the last time I played against him, he had 70 cards, and I still milled him out without issue. The issue there being that I have access to Bounty Hunter Crew, like 3 of Bounty Hunter Crew, so I could just like keep recurring the removal, like Super Laser Blast and Vanquish, Power the Dark Side even, and I can keep recurring the Vigilances, and then once I'm decked out, I can use Restock to just get the exact card that I want, because you don't have to, it says up to 4, so you can choose 2 if you want. So you choose Restock plus the card that you're looking for, and then you're guaranteed to draw it. It's almost impossible for them to win the super late game. They have a very solid chance of winning in the mid game, and that's why in this matchup I'm considering them more of like a mid-range deck, even an aggro deck. I mean, given I'm hard control, so basically any deck playing against me is going to be the aggro deck. But what the biggest way I've lost to Krennic Green is by, aside from misplaying, which I did in the finals, and I'll get into that. The biggest way I've lost to Krennic Green is treating it as a control deck instead of a mid-range deck. It's not in this matchup. It's not a control. It's a mid-range. Top 8 was then what I consider my hardest matchup, Sabine Green, or Sabine Yellow. Sabine Yellow is probably the hardest, but Sabine X is going to be my hardest matchup. Game 1, he was able to go wide to the field, which is the hardest thing for hard control to deal with currently, because there's no way to 2-for-1 until 5 resources with Bosk, or the Boba flip turn. It was turn 2 he went wide, not turn 1, so I think turn 2 was, I forget what it was, but it was a 2-drop in R2-D2. And then turn 3, I think it was turn 3, he wing leadered the R2-D2, either turn 3 or turn 4. He got too wide to the board, and he killed me before I could Super Laser Blast and stabilize. Games 2 and 3 went a bit better. Game 2, I probably should have lost. He had a bad turn 1 play. His only turn 1 play was R2-D2, and that was slow enough for me to stabilize, even though I didn't hit the line that I'm looking for. I'm pretty much hard mulling for a Greedo in this matchup. The Greedo is so crucial to being able to win this, and I didn't hit it game 2. But because he had the slower start, stabilized pretty easily, and then closed the game with, I want to say Fire Spray. Game 3, I definitely closed the game with Fire Spray. And then Game 3, I hit the Greedo, and there was nothing. It wasn't even close. Uh, Being able to, even though he had initiative, being able to take initiative turn 1, power the dark side, untap 1, play Greedo, and then turn 3, it was attack Greedo into, I can't remember the name of the card. I know the card. I know the name of the card. I can't remember it off the top of my head. 3/4. When you play an aggression card, it picks for 1 damage. Attack Greedo into that. Flip the top card. Hit for 2 damage. Kills it. Then he's only playing 1 creature to the field, so it's like, okay, I could just keep passing. There's only one unit now. And he risked the deployment on Sabine, and I had the takedown ready. It was pretty much locked from there. I ended up with a devotion on Boba, and then later I ended up with a devotion on Fire Spray. I think I ended the game with less than 10 damage on my base. Then I faced the Iden Blue Midrange deck again. I talked about that one earlier. It really doesn't have a shot against hard control, so bad matchup for him. The other option, what I should have played against was the Krennic Green opponent that I had from round 6. But there was a reseeding. Instead of doing a bracket, it like reseeded, which was a little weird. Either way, I was pretty confident going into that round, and then final round I was against Wu, at least what I would say the strongest player in the local area. Well, not even just local. He lives like an hour away, but like, within a few hour drive, I'm pretty sure he's the strongest player. I misplayed so badly. Oh man, it was turn. I had some weaker hands. It's also like a little bit awkward when a Krennic Green player plays Super Laser Tech. I don't want to kill it. Probably the best removal to play against it is Waylay, and that's just card disadvantage, and they just play it again. They're eventually going to ramp anyways, but I don't want him to get his Krennic out first. Those early turns are very hard to navigate, and he played them very well. He had the Super Laser Tech both games. I was forced to remove it both games. Turn 4 on my deployment turn, I had to just like bring out Boba. I had attacked him with Bosk, cleaned up his board. It was just Krennic left. I bring out Boba because I have to, even though he has full mana open and ECL available, and I'm fully expecting the Steadfast. It happened to be that he didn't have Steadfast. He had Gideon at the time, which was amazing for me. I was like, I had my hand on Boba, just ready to put him back, praying that he didn't have the Steadfast. He didn't end up having it. It was Gideon. He ended up playing Gideon, trading or killing the Bosk, which put an experience counter on Gideon and a damage on Gideon, which gave him +2 attack. I was only calculating it as +1 attack. I attacked in thinking that I would have the untap from Boba, which would set me up for Power of the Dark Side on Krennic, fully clear his board. Boba died. I attacked the Gideon instead. Boba died. Oh man, it's embarrassing. And then it gets worse from here. This put an experience token because Gideon sees my Boba get defeated, even though he's defeated at the same time. This puts an experience token on Krennic. I have an I Am Your Father in your hand. It's very rare, even against aggro, and this is why I love I Am Your Father. Not love, I would probably just run a dedicated hard removal if I could, but the fact that draw 3 actually could be the better option, even against aggro players, they don't want to let me draw 3. It is like, I mean, if it was just said 3 mana draw 3, I suppose there would be some number of it that were still in the deck, but it does need a function as a removal. I Am Your Father now couldn't kill Krennic because it has 8 life from the +1/+1 counter. I use I Am Your Father hoping he'll let me draw, because even if Krennic was still on the field, and if I played it on a 7 health Krennic, I would still probably want the draw in that case, as I do think it's the stronger option, but he's not going to let me draw when it has 8 health. I need to play it, though, to get the draw, because I'm in a very bad game state now. He takes the damage. Now Krennic is a 4 attack unit between the +1 from being damaged and the +1 from +1/+1 from Gideon Hask, and the game just derails from there. He's able to push a bunch more damage. He ends up with Del Miko on the field and Relentless, which is such a strong lock. Yeah, he got me there. Game 2, double super laser technician again. I think I waylaid the first one, but like he just plays it again. I kill it. Plays another one in resupply. Ramped 3 times. I'm on 6 resources. He's on 9. I had an option to not play to the field, but I needed to play to the field to try to stabilize my life total before I took too much damage. If I didn't play to the field, he wouldn't have been able to kill the second super laser technician, so I was left with a choice on turn 5 to either kill the super laser technician that's going to just keep attacking me for 2 and not play to the board, which meant not playing a Bosk and flipping my Boba, or to kill the super laser technician, let him go to 9 mana, and just pray he doesn't have a capital ship. I figured that was my best chance. I also figured if I could fully clear his board this way, which I did, and then all I had to do was top deck a 3 or less cost event, and then even if it was Relentless, I had a Power Dark Side in my hand and I could kill it. I also had a Mining Guild tie on the field, so I knew I'd be able to draw. He has the Relentless on 9 resources. Only unit on the field because I've fully cleared everything else. I don't draw the cheap event. I can't power the dark side it because my hand is like power the dark side, search your feelings, vigilance, and forget what else. I think it was a unit. So I'm like, okay, 6 resources. I'm gonna attack with Mining Guild TIE Fighter and just pray that it is. I intentionally leave the repairs in my deck in addition to bringing in the second restock, even though this is like, I'm not really sure how relevant the second restock is, but it's because I want those 1 mana, 1 resource events to blank Relentless. It's no good for me dead. No good to me dead. One resource off, I can't kill the Relentless. He's gonna untap, he's gonna play another unit, I'm not gonna be able to power the dark side it. I don't have a Vanquish in my hand, which is the other option. I could play another cheap event and then play Vanquish. However, he untaps and plays Del Miko. Now all my events cost 1 more. So I have to play a +1 event to blank the first one that gets blanked to even play my second event. The kicker, the next card, the very top card of my deck, the card that I would have drawn after the no good to me dead, was the repair. So there's a chance I could have won game 2 if it had been a repair that I had top decked with the Mining Guild TIE Fighter attack, or I had just any cheap event in my hand, even at like any 3 cost event, like another Waylay, another I Am Your Father, another Make an Opening, anything that I could have turned on Power the Dark Side the turn before. But at this point, he's got Del Miko out, he's got Relentless out, he's triple ramped. The game's locked. There's nothing I could do. He just cleans me up super quickly from there. Runs over. I got second. It was a great matchup. I really enjoyed the tournament. I had a lot of fun. I really love the deck. I would definitely play this deck again. I don't think I would change the list much at all from this. The biggest thing that I wanted to do with this list was add another Search Your Feelings. Originally it was a 3rd Search Your Feelings and only 1 restock. I found issues with that. The second restock's very much needed for hard control. The third Search Your Feelings is also not needed, but really wanted for hard control because of the whole game of play restock, like finding your restock, finding your search, play restock, you search to shuffle your library and find restock again, and then, just keep that going, keep putting cards back in, keep finding cards you need. Having 3 search, even 3 restock would be phenomenal for hard control. However, in every other matchup, even against aggro, I want that third Spark of Rebellion. Not because I want Spark of Rebellion against aggro. I do want 3 Spark of Rebellion against blue-green control and other like later mid-range decks that I could strip their late game bombs, especially the ones that 2-for-1 the board, like Vader, U-Wing, Home 1, etc. Strip Relentless. So having the third Spark is always good against those. And it's still good against hard control, even though the third Search Your Feelings would be better. Ideally, it would be three of each. Just cutting a card from this list is very hard, especially in an aggro-skewed meta. I was thinking about cutting a Waylay. I was thinking about cutting an I Am Your Father. I was thinking about cutting a Make an Opening. No Good to Me Dead. Just to get that extra search in there, but then I'm bringing Spark into the main deck. I mean, I could bring a Devotion into the main deck. I could bring a Fire. I don't know. I just didn't... When I'm planning for an aggro-skewed meta, I didn't want to cut any of those. So I couldn't fit that slot. There's also not too many hard control players. The control players tend to skew towards blue-green. So I ended up settling on the third Spark instead of the third Search Your Feelings. But if there was one thing I changed going forward, it would be trying to fit the third Search Your Feelings, although I'm still not sure how, and I'm not sure if I would, unless the meta ever shifted more towards hard control. Or not just hard control, but hard control players that are also building their decks for the hard control mirror, because I did play against 2 Iden Blues, and both of those Iden Blue players weren't set up for control mirror matches. I also want to say that I think this deck will potentially still be good with the next set coming out in a couple weeks. I'm a little concerned because there aren't a lot of strong, like pretty much anything that would be, there's no upgrade for Waylay, there's no upgrade for I Am Your Father, there's no upgrade for Make an Opening. There's not like a good 3-cost removal that's an event that has been spoiled yet. I'm really hoping there will be one. But at the same time, I'm not too concerned about those cards remaining what they are. Like I was talking about earlier with I Am Your Father, the draw 3 is actually probably what you want it to be anyways, although you do need a removal in that slot. The draw 3 is probably better, and that's why I Am Your Father is such a good card. Waylay has the added benefit of being able to bounce your own units, namely Bounty Hunter Crew. So in those grindy matchups, Waylay Bounty Hunter Crew and get another 2-for-1. Return another spell and get the ambush attack off. And Make an Opening, being able to heal is good by itself, and -2/-2 is good by itself. It can set up trades like Mining Guild TIE Fighter, can trade into most space units without dying, like most early game space units without dying with Make an Opening. And with Bosk, it hits for 4. So I think this deck will still survive next set. There's also a consideration that has to be given to Boba Yellow getting a bunch more discard tools and a bunch more strong utility. Like Boba Yellow just gets upgraded, although Boba Blue is favored in the matchup against Boba Yellow, and even if they curve out with 3 Bodhi Rooks, it's still not too bad. Honestly, like any aggro deck, I actually think aggro might, aside from Sabine, Sabine has the reach with the pinging. I'm not too concerned about playing aggro decks with this list. The biggest concern is actually the wide board state value that mid-range decks can bring. And again, mid-range I'm not too concerned about either. So, yeah, that's it. Like, it's my first video, but yeah, like it, subscribe it if you want more. If I see that, I'll definitely be more motivated to get a in-depth deck tech on this, and then probably other decks in the future and do other types of videos as well. I know this ran a little long, but yeah, I hope everyone enjoyed it. Like, comment, subscribe. Have a good one.